All right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. This is Understanding Lead Paint Inspection Law Reporting, Technical Assistance for Municipal Staff. My name is Gavin Rozzi. I'm the Director of Data Center Administration with the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs, Division of Housing and Community Resources. We've got a great program for you here today. So today's agenda. Your facilitators today include myself. We're also joined by our colleague Sherry Malnack, Assistant Division Director here at DHCR. We're also joined by Abigail Delacruz, a data analyst from my team here at the data center, our colleague Marie Daniels from the Division of Codes and Standards, as well as Kevin Preddy, Geographic Information Systems Specialist with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, who will be showcasing some of their efforts related to lead hazard mapping. Today, we're going to provide an overview of the lead paint inspection law and its associated requirements for municipalities, in addition to updates from my team in terms of new improvements that we are making to the municipal lead reporting portal process and some of the progress with data and reporting tools that we're also developing. Later in the presentation, we will talk about some of the new partnerships and integrations to help facilitate compliance on the municipal end. And at the end, we're going to be having a question and answer session. So I see we have some people that already have their hands raised. Please save all of your questions till the end. Feel free to put them in the chat, or we'll call on you at the end, and we'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have. So let's go ahead and get started with our goals for today. By the end of this presentation, you should be familiar with the municipal reporting requirements of PL 2021 Chapter 182 and recent amendments to what's known as New Jersey's lead paint inspection law. With what we're able to present today, you should be able to familiarize yourself with some of the new features and data tools that we are putting out based on stakeholder feedback to assist with both understanding the prevalence of lead hazards in your community, as well as our future roadmap for process improvements. So we're going to start with an overview of the lead paint inspection law from our colleague Marie Daniels. Marie?
Good morning, everybody. So I don't know if this is anyone's first time hearing about this law or sitting in one of these presentations. If not, I may be a very familiar face to you at this point. I have been working on this law since its initial signage and enactment in 2021. So I've done quite a few presentations on this, but I always like to start with a broad overview, just because even if you've sat with me for any of these, I think 15 now, presentations I've done on this, it's always good to refamiliarize yourself with the background and the scope of all of this, everything that brought forth this legislation, because it is a really important law. So Public Law 2021, Chapter 182, which was actually further amended last year with Chapter 74, requires inspections for lead-based paint hazards in certain pre-1978 rental dwellings. So there are two laws at play now when we discuss it. Most often, just because everybody got so familiar with calling it 182, that's still usually what I've been calling it, but I do clarify that that includes the recent amendments. So inspections must be performed at tenant turnover under both of these laws. That requirement did not change. It did extend the first inspection to 3 years of the law's effective date, or tenant turnover, whichever is sooner. So the only thing that this extension really applies to with the new amendments is any long-term tenants that you didn't get to before the law's effective date. You now have until July of this year to start those inspections for long-term tenants. That's one thing to keep in mind. But for the most part, any tenant turnover should already have had their first inspection anyway. And for the scope, I know I said certain pre-1978 rental dwellings. It applies specifically to single-family, two-family, and multiple rental dwelling units. So the rented is really the important portion here. One thing that also changed with the recent amendments is before municipalities, if they had any kind of permanent local agency that could enter into buildings, they were solely responsible and required to perform these inspections in-house. With recent amendments, towns now also have the permission to enter into contracts with lead evaluation contractors. That's something that was really, I think, the biggest push when we saw this first go into effect, was that a lot of towns didn't have the staff, or their staff didn't have the expertise to take on this project. So being able to enter into contracts with certified lead evaluation contractors really does open the doors for better inspections throughout the state to occur. There is allowed through municipalities, they are allowed to establish fees for administration of this law and implementation of this law. One thing that stays the same is a standard $20 surcharge fee per inspection. That's to be remitted to DCA for each inspection. That goes into the Lead Hazard Control Safety Fund. So that's one thing to keep in mind. There are, of course, exemptions like there are to any law, particularly, of course, to anything that's 1978 or after, because it won't have lead in it in the first place. It's also any property that's been issued a valid lead safe certification under this law is exempt for the time that that lead safe certification is valid. It's also any property that's certified to be free of lead-based paint pursuant to 517. 5:17 is one of the other laws that's in play anytime we talk about lead. It is for the remediation and abatement control. So that really sets forth how abatement is supposed to be undertaken, remediation is undertaken. So a lead-free certification under that law shows that the abatement was by the books and it's all good. Certain seasonal rentals are also exempt. It applies to any place that's rented for 6 months or less duration during the year. So think like your summer rentals, your seasonal properties are exempt under this law, as well as any multiple dwelling units, which is defined by the Hotel and Multiple Dwelling Act as 3 or more units. Any of those units that are registered with our Bureau of Housing Inspection for a period of 10 years that has no outstanding paint violations from the last inspection, those are all exempt. I know that's a bit of a mouthful, especially for towns, because towns rely on BHI through the DCA to do these inspections. So you may not always be familiar with, well, I don't know what violations they have. I don't know what inspections they have. That onus is really on the multiple dwelling owners to be able to provide those inspection certifications to show they are all clear. And if they have a certification of inspection, it means there's no outstanding violations at all. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The onus really is on the owners. We do have information on our lead website that shows exempt multiple dwellings as well from the information that we can provide. So that is one thing to bear in mind for all of those kind of various exemptions. That's really the universe of the lead-based paint inspection law. I also want to give a quick refresher on an overview of how this law applies. So of course, as it's in the name, it's really an inspection-based law. Inspections are either a visual assessment or a dust wipe sampling of all interior areas. Whether your town is visual or dust wipe is also information that's provided on our website. That came down through the Department of Health based on their numbers for elevated blood lead levels in children. Basically, if more than 3% of children had that elevated blood lead level, it's a dust wipe sample. And if fewer did, then it's a visual assessment. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And any kind of dust wiping does have to be in accordance with HUD requirements. So all of those are kind of cross-referenced throughout our documents. You see that on the lead website. We have a whole guidebook that has any helpful links that you may need for that. Additionally, I just wanted to point out, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, with the changes that were enacted in 2024, inspections must occur upon tenant turnover unless there's a valid lead safe certification, or every 3 years, because the lead safe certification is now valid for a period of 3 years. Previously, it was only good for a period of 2 years, and it caused a lot of record keeping confusion for, you needed an inspection every 3 years, but the exemption, the certification only lasted 2 years, and it was kind of a record-keeping logistics nightmare. Now that certification is in line with the actual revolving door of inspections, so the cycle lines up, which is wonderful to know. And of course, the results are pretty straightforward. Where there are no lead-based paint hazards found, a lead safe certification is to be issued for that period of 3 years. Where lead-based paint hazards are found in the building, remediation needs to occur, whether through interim controls or abatement. Now, that is really at the discretion of the owner, but municipalities as an inspector or using a lead evaluation contractor, they often have a lot of really helpful insight to say, this was a visual assessment, and based on what we've seen, it looks like interim controls would be a perfectly appropriate way to get this place lead safe. Or they'll know whether it's so damaged that abatement is really a better option for you. So re-inspections after that do need to occur with dust wipes, because there you really want to be sure they followed the proper clearance protocols. You want to ensure that the place is lead safe after remediation. Any interim control remediation will result in the issuance of a lead safe certification following that dust wipe sampling. And of course, if a property owner chose to abate the property as a result of lead-based paint hazards, that will result in a clearance certification, which would then exempt them from future lead-based paint inspections if the property is lead-free on the inside. So that's really on broad brush how everything functions. I know it's a lot of information to take in. We do have a website. I will drop it in the chat when I am done talking. It has a guidebook, it has an email. So this lead law is very much put together on our website, with one caveat that I will give. Like I said, there were changes adopted to the law in 2024. We are still at work in the Division of Codes and Standards in drafting updates to our regulations, our guidance, and our website to implement all of those changes. So anywhere where you see something on the website and you think, well, Marie said it was 3 years yesterday, why does this guidebook still say 2? We are working on that. We know it's there. One of the best things about undertaking this work now is that you would think after 2021, when this was enacted, I'd have heard every question at least once by now, but we still get unique questions that pose some interesting implications, and it feels like a great opportunity to update the rules to really be able to get all of these questions answered through the rules. So I'm excited for that opportunity. That will be upcoming this year. Their draft regulations are something that I'm currently working on as we speak. And with that, that's really the broad brush overview of how the lead-based paint inspection works. So I can toss this over to my colleagues at the Division of Housing and Community Resources. They have a lot of great information that goes hand in hand with this.
Thank you, Marie. We appreciate all of the detailed information, and that's very helpful guidance. So next, we're going to hear from our colleague Sherry Malnack about the Lead Remediation and Abatement Program, or LRAP. Sherry, go ahead.
I'm so sorry, I was muted. Thanks so much for joining. We're thrilled that there's so many people on this call. I'm sure most of you guys heard about our lead remediation and abatement program. It started in late 2023. We received $180 million from Governor Murphy to deal with lead remediation and abatement. The program is very similar to the law that's in place. It deals with properties built before 1978. The properties have to have lead-based paint hazards and be free from structural issues such as, roof leaks or stuff like that, that would basically impact our work if it's done. The only thing with this, the properties cannot be more than 4 residential units. So we're doing 1 to 4 residential units, and the occupant must have a gross household income of no more than 80% of AMI. The owner could apply, but as long as the tenant certifies that their income is 80% or less, that they qualify. We also do vacant units. The caveat with the vacant units is the owner has to sign a certification that the unit will be rented within 6 months to a lower moderate income family. We have 51 grants throughout the state. They're all being administered by community-based organizations. The application for this is done on an online CRM portal, which is pretty simple. It can be accessed through DCA Aid. Can you go to the next page, please, Gavin? And these are our costs. Right now for remediation, we do about $13,000. And for abatement, $25,000. The caveat with abatement, the Department of Health has to issue a notice of violation, basically stating that a child 6 or under has a high blood level. But we have plenty of money. We're really hopeful that as you guys put in units that fail, that we'll be able to reach out to the families before the 30 days come into play and offer them this type of assistance. It's a grant, no lien on the property. So thanks again for participating, and hopefully you guys will start utilizing the portal. Thanks again. Take care.
Thank you, Sherry. Yes, that $180 million grant truly is a generational investment, and we encourage all eligible folks to take advantage of that. So next, you're going to hear from my team about some updates to the municipal lead reporting portal. So I want to start with the statutory mandate for why we are collecting this data in the first place. So it's been recently codified at NJSA 52:27D-437.16F. And this is the legislative mandate behind why we are doing a lot of this work. And the statute says each municipality shall deliver to the Department of Community Affairs a list identifying each dwelling unit inspected pursuant to this section, and each dwelling unit determined to contain a lead-based paint hazard. Our answer to this mandate is standing up the municipal lead reporting portal. It is the department's official electronic reporting system created to facilitate the implementation of this requirement. It's been in existence since July of 2024, and the portal is an easy-to-use online interface designed to be used by either municipal staff or contracted lead evaluation inspectors via our web interface. This portal must be used for the submission of inspection documentation in order for your municipality to be in compliance. We are allowing municipalities to designate software vendors or lead contractors to submit data on their behalf under a limited pilot program that we're going to talk further about. And our default model under this portal, and I know there's been a lot of chatter about this among our survey respondents and other just general inquiries we've got, is to submit one property at a time. We are exploring options for bulk data sharing to make this process a little bit more user-friendly. But I'm particularly excited to talk about today some of the refinements and improvements that we are making to the portal based on the feedback from municipal staff and the larger lead community. So I want to talk about these refinements. We have several new features that we're going to be announcing today. We have also launched a bulk data reporting pilot program. So we will be working with certain lead contractors, municipalities, and other stakeholders that have the bandwidth through their certified lead evaluation contractor to allow their database to directly talk to our portal and exchange data on their behalf. For those municipalities and contractors that participate in this program, this will eliminate the requirement to manually enter the data in the portal, but only if there's a data sharing agreement in place. Additionally, you may have recently heard from my office on a stakeholder engagement survey that we sent out to all of the confirmed users of the municipal lead reporting portal. This was as part of DCA's engagement to stakeholder engagement, data-driven decision-making, and a solutions-focused mindset. We wanted to do some research from the data center team to get a sense of what are the current pain points and areas for improvement so that we can make this reporting process more user-friendly. So at this time, I would like to share with you some of the survey results that we have and how that they have informed our development of some of these new features. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And here are our survey results. I appreciate the candor that a lot of you have expressed in sharing some of your comments with us. The results are anonymous. We will not be sharing any names or identifying information. So obviously, everybody that we spoke with for this came from municipal government. We wanted to get a sense of how frequently you are using the portal to submit information. Obviously, the biggest two categories here are either occasionally or on a weekly basis, which makes sense given the cadence of a lot of these inspections. Now, in looking at how many reports are typically submitted by month, a lot of municipalities are submitting a small amount, fewer than 10. So, this has been our expected use case, with going one property at a time. Obviously, some of the smaller groups here in this response are sharing a lot more inspections and higher volume, which you would expect for some of the larger municipalities. Now, this was an interesting question. In talking about the staff burden and some of the challenges that municipalities are encountering with entering their data into the portal, The overwhelming majority of the folks that answered our survey have one person that's dedicated to being the staff person that's entering data onto the municipal lead reporting portal. A smaller amount of municipalities have larger teams that are working through this. We wanted to get a sense of how effective our current training and support has been. Obviously, we feel that there's areas for improvement here, and that's why we're hosting additional sessions like today and continuing to engage. Moving forward, asking about the overall experience. 30% of you said it was somewhat negative. I'm sorry to hear that. And, we're definitely interested in making refinements that will make this process more cohesive on your end. The next largest group was neutral, neither negative nor positive. And 21% of you and 13% of you said that you were either very positive or somewhat positive. And the smallest group, was very negative. And hopefully we're going to make things a little bit better for that group today. Thinking about challenges that folks have encountered with the portal. The biggest challenge has been the lack of clarity in reporting requirements. My team is focused specifically on supporting the portal and the electronic reporting interface. So, I can't comment specifically on the legislation, which is why we have Marie here. I think as we update this guidance and get more information out to you, hopefully there will be better clarity. Difficulty accessing inspection history and inability to make changes, both of those had 14% respondents. Some of the new features that we're going to share with you today will hopefully be able to directly address those subset of concerns. And then asking whether or not they have encountered any issues submitting reports or data, 60-40. The majority have not had issues using our portal, which we appreciate. Then talking about the content of the questions, again, I know we've gotten a lot of feedback on the specific language in the questions. A lot of folks have had suggestions for refinements and other areas. Again, we're trying to keep the questions just within the spirit and the intent of the statute, which speaks, to the details of the inspections. Now, this was the most interesting question on our side. We wanted to get a sense of what features we could offer from our end that would be the most impactful for improving the user experience on the municipal end of things. And the number one feature that was asked for was the ability to make changes to your submissions. We will have some news to share on that today. We have a mechanism in place for that will be being deployed in the near future. And then tools for looking up inspection history. This is something that we are addressing through some of our new data and reporting tools that we're going to showcase later in the program. We started prototyping this when we had our last session back in August, and now we have something that's ready for prime time use. And then third, the bulk data upload capabilities. We definitely hear you on that, and we're going to have a little bit more information to share on that later in the presentation. So again, a lot of the comments that people had shared with us, they'd like to be able to enter multiple properties at the same time. Some person had a comment about the information being protected information and owner, the disclosure of owners' addresses. I do just want to flag under, if this was a reference to Daniel's law or other types of data privacy laws, as a legally mandated reporting under the statute and also DCA's role as a public entity, those types of protections do not necessarily apply. Certainly, we are not disclosing people's addresses or anything like that, but I do want to just flag that. So we'll stop here on the survey results and get back to the rest of the presentation. But we do value your input. We do value a lot of the concerns that are being expressed by municipalities. And, we've read all of your comments. My team that maintains the portal, we went through every one of your comments, concerns, complaints, and we did read everything. So we really appreciate the people that took the time to share their feedback with us. And it's something that we're going to keep implementing as we create new features. So let's talk about the new features. The first feature that I'm pleased to announce is now available today. Um, if you have previously submitted information in the municipal lead portal, our form will now look up your past information, so your municipality affiliation, using the first name and email field. So what will happen is if you type in your information, you'll see that it will now automatically fill out those portions of the form for you. And again, one of the comments that we were getting a lot was it's a bit of a burden to have to manually go in, select your name, municipality, and affiliation every time. So in an effort to address that, we have deployed that feature as of today. If you go to use the portal today, you'll be able to take advantage of that, but only if you have submitted something previously under the same credentials using this portal. Another exciting new development that I'm pleased to share is we have developed a correction form that will be going up on the municipal lead reporting portal. We've worked through this a few different ways using our government workflow automation platform. But what will happen in the near future, we will be sending out further guidance on using this. You will be able to use the correction form to take the confirmation number of your original submission, enter in any data that you might need to update that may have been inaccurate or needs to be changed, and you will get a separate confirmation that the portal has been automatically updated with the amended data that you've submitted to us. No manual intervention required, which we really think will be a big time saver. And then we have some exciting data tools that we'll be covering as well. We have a publicly available link that we can share with you to the lead paint inspection law dashboard. Now, I do want to flag that this dashboard is somewhat of a work in progress. We're continuing to iterate and evaluate the most effective way of presenting this data. So it may change. We would ask, don't link to the dashboard on your municipal websites or embed it there, but this is going to be kind of your tool to get a 30,000-foot view of compliance in your municipality. You'll be able to look up the entire inspection history of a property by using the tax map, block, and lot identifiers. You'll be able to see the aggregate results of the inspections within your municipality or within a particular county. And as a part of our commitment to data-driven decision making, we believe that getting this data out there and open sourcing it for state, local, municipal, and county partners will allow you to more effectively understand the prevalence of lead-based hazards in your community. Additionally, we are going to be integrating with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection's mapping tool, PLEM, potential lead exposure mapping, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Abigail Delacruz, data analyst on my team, and she's going to provide a demonstration of the portal as it exists today, some of our new features, and the correction form that will be going out soon. So, Abigail?
Hey everyone, thank you for joining today. I'll just go ahead and quickly share my screen. Okay, so as you can see here, this is where the current municipal lead reporting portal stands. The link is in the chat if you would like to follow along as well. But as Gavin had mentioned, one of our most recent updates was the pre-population of some of the submitter information that you guys have been entering in. So this change was implemented last night, and as you can see, now there's this little note here that says if you've submitted this form before, simply enter your first name exactly as you did previously, along with your email address in lowercase below to automatically populate your previously provided information. So I had made a submission this morning. This is the associated confirmation email to go with that. And here's some of the information I have. I put my first name and as well as my email, and you could see first name, last name, email, phone number, county, and municipality. So as I do in the notes up here, I put in my first name as well as my email. And it should populate the rest of the information. And then another new feature that we have that Gavin also mentioned just now is our municipal lead reporting portal correction form. This isn't released yet, however, it should be coming out soon. So this really looks very similar to the original form. Still all of the exact same fields with the property information. This should all be familiar in terms of going back to the original form. Owner information, inspection results. However, I have this submission ID box right here. So if you've submitted before and you would like to make a correction to your form, you would pull up that confirmation email. As you can see here, this is my sample one. And in the subject line, we have this LT followed by 6 numbers. It's also located here in the header. And further down here as well, you're looking for that number or that LT followed by 6 digits. So if I go ahead and copy that number, go back to the correction form, enter this into the submission ID section, we can see all of the information that we put before. So would be my sample information. And if we go to the property information, we could see the information that I entered before. Again, it's all the same owner information, inspection results. So I would then go ahead and let's just say I accidentally put in the wrong address for the property. I could just go in, search up my address, and it will automatically pre-populate like in the original form. And then I would go ahead, hit next. And if you need to change more information, we could change first name, last name, hit next. Anything that needs to be changed from before can be changed here. Do the CAPTCHA and then hit submit. And this will automatically update the original submission you had. Okay, and I think that's it in terms of the updates.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, Abigail. And can you please show the lead paint inspection law dashboard
Yes.
and the property list? Sorry about that.
Okay. Let me pull them up and reshare. Okay, so if you go on the NJDCA Data Hub, this link is right here. This is currently publicly available information. And go to the housing section, and you can just access this by looking up lead. We have this lead paint inspection law dashboard. So this dashboard is pretty much designed to help us and you, the municipalities, manage and track inspections relating to that portal. So all of your submissions will funnel into this dashboard, and you can see here, this helps just to ensure transparency and accountability and adhering to the law. And we can monitor your compliance progress, help identify and rectify any discrepancies, and sort of maintain a historical record of your submissions through this portal. So here we could see the last refresh. This is how we know when the data is most recent. So this data is recent as of today at 9:33 a.m. We have a total of 5,731 submissions, 84 municipalities with submissions. And if you wanted to specifically look for your county or municipality, you can also filter. So if you click on down here, we could do, for example, Middlesex and the New Brunswick City municipality. We could see all of the submissions they have made over time. We could see out of all of the properties they submitted, there was lead found in 4 of them. We could click on the 4. We could see when those took place. We could see whether or not there was a certificate issued, and we can see the presence of children in those properties. We can also hit the clear and oops, and let me just unselect that, and we could see our original view. And then on this next page, we could see all of the counties where we have submissions, as well as all of the municipalities where we have inspection submissions. And again, we can filter by the county and municipality. Go with my same example, Middlesex, New Brunswick City, and we could see the total here as well. And then we also have filters for whether or not lead-based paint hazards were found in the residence, was a lead safe certificate issued, and were children present in the residence as well. Moving on to the next page, we can see sort of a similar view of the county and municipalities in a different way. So here we have the counties and municipalities. We can hit the arrow up to see the county level, drill down to get the municipality level, and then hit this expand all down one level in the hierarchy just to see the original view we had. And then we have the same filters, county, municipality. We have, you could see a list of the municipalities with submissions. So we could sort of scroll down here, also scroll down in this bar chart, as well as the list of municipalities without submissions. And then on this last page here, we can sort of use this as a historical tracker of the submissions in the past. So we could switch the submission date. For example, if I wanted to see submissions just from 2024, we can hit the end date and go back to the end of December 2024. We can look up the county and municipality, and then block, lot, property city, zip code, type of property, were lead-based paint hazards found in the residence, was a lead safe certificate issued, and were children present in the residence. And so since I have this filtered on county, municipality, and submission date, we could see all of these submissions from New Brunswick City from July to December 2024. And there's no PII, personally identification, messing up, personally identifiable information in here. So you could just look at your submission ID based on that confirmation email and track back to that. And then I will also be sharing the pre-1978 properties potentially eligible for inspection. So this dashboard has properties potentially eligible for inspection, and this data is drawn from the Mod 4 tax assessment database and consists of properties constructed before 1978 in New Jersey. And so this is pretty much to help identify potentially eligible properties for inspection. So I have an example here. Again, if we were in Middlesex County and I worked for the New Brunswick City Municipality, I can see the whole list of potentially eligible properties. And then could clear it as well and look up any municipality or county. So I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Abigail. And one point that I'd like to add on just that last piece, ultimately municipalities have the obligation of determining whether or not an exemption applies. There are certain records, via landlord-tenant registrations or other documentation that is only available at the municipal level, that you would want to cross-reference that with. That list of potentially eligible properties is strictly based on the Mod 4 tax assessment database and the year of construction that is reported there. From a data perspective, there are a number of properties entered into Mod 4 at the local level that either lack an accurate year for construction or, just didn't have that information properly entered. So it's possible that this list may not be complete. And I just want to remind municipal officials that ultimately you are responsible for doing that due diligence. But we're certainly hopeful that making this available helps facilitate things on your end. All right. So turning back to the rest of our presentation today, we talked about the data and reporting tools. We're going to move on now to partnerships and integrations. So we've made a lot of progress since we first started this over the summer. And the big thing I want to talk about today is bulk data upload. So we have been hearing from you. Many municipalities are either working with a certified lead contractor or they are using municipal software to log inspections. As it stands now, unless you are covered by one of the data sharing agreements that we're looking to enter into under our pilot program, the use of the portal is mandatory as the official method for submitting this list. That being said, we recognize and appreciate that if you have a contracted lead inspector that you're working with for your town and they are collecting all of this information on your behalf, it doesn't make sense to have you have to go and manually enter in that data a second time. I am sensitive to that concern, and so is our entire team here. So towards that end, we are under a limited pilot program. We are seeking to collaborate with certified lead evaluation contractors that are collecting data on behalf of municipalities to facilitate their reporting on their behalf. And the first group that we will be working with under this is Lou Environmental. I want to thank them for their partnership on this, as they will be sharing under the terms of a tentative agreement that is pending formal ratification. They will facilitate sharing of data directly to DCA on behalf of the 116 municipalities that they currently do inspections for. So once that agreement and data sharing is finalized, when Lou completes the inspections, they will be automatically entered into the municipal lead reporting portal and no further action is necessary on the municipality's side. We are actively having conversations with other folks that are in this space. So if you are from one of these contractors and you're also interested in pursuing one of these bulk data sharing arrangements, my team is ready, willing, and able to discuss what those next steps might look like. And this will allow those contractors to eliminate that reporting burden from their municipal clients. We understand there's some municipalities that are also using software vendors. So, I don't want to comment on any particular software vendor or platform. But if you are using some sort of a municipal management software that you're logging these inspections in, and your concern is about having to now report them a second time via the portal, we are also interested in having those conversations with the software vendors. So if this is something that is a concern for you, definitely feel free to reach out to your software vendor and make them aware of the information that we're sharing here today. And really, it just becomes a technical issue. If your software vendor is willing to do the work that's necessary to interconnect their database with our lead portal, we are more than happy to explore the feasibility of those types of bulk data sharing arrangements. And again, this is a pilot program right now. It's something that we are going to evaluate and assess, and based on the feedback and based on the data availability from the vendor and contractor side, it's something that we will adjust further in the future. So this is very exciting progress. I know that this is something that's very important to a lot of municipalities, and within the regulatory framework that we're operating under, we're doing everything possible on our end to try to facilitate the bulk sharing of information to eliminate this burden where we can. Our next partnership and integration comes from our colleagues at the NJDEP. We had talked about their PLEM mapping tool. This is really kind of, I don't want to speak for DEP, but I think it's like a one-stop shop for lead exposure monitoring in your community. They're taking in data from DCA originally on the building permits based on the housing stock, and it's recently under an agreement it will be integrated in the future with the municipal lead reporting data for enhancements to their layers of data that they present in that tool. I think it's a very valuable resource. I think this is something that you can leverage in your communities to get a sense of the footprint of what needs to be inspected and other lead hazards within your community. Really exciting use of data. So joining us today is Kevin Preddy from DEP, who maintains the PLEM tool. And he's going to be speaking a little bit further about how you can use it and what his tool displays. So Kevin, go ahead.
Thank you, Gavin. And just thank you to DCA for giving us a platform to discuss PLEM. I'm very excited to integrate some of the data that Abigail was showing earlier, just in regard to their dashboard. I'm going to give a quick overview of the PLEM tool, but I just want to give you guys a little bit of background about myself. I've been at NJDEP for about 3 years now, working as a GIS specialist in the Office of Environmental and Public Health Analysis, which is off the branch of the Commissioner's Office. And I'm just going to start sharing my screen to show you guys the potential lead exposure tool. So please let me know, someone, if you guys can see my screen.
Yep.
Sweet. Perfect. Thank you so much. So PLEM is a result of a partnership with the New Jersey Department of Health, their environmental and public health tracking team, which is part of the national network of EPHD, or Environmental and Public Health Tracking. They are a partial funder of this. So this was released around 2021 originally, but has gone through a couple of different updates. The main two tabs I want to focus on are the lead-based paint and service line inventory tabs, as they have the actual data. But if you wanted to look, there is the introduction tab to give perhaps maybe someone who is less familiar and not as into the weeds as everyone else is that is probably on this call, to give them a little bit of detail about what the concern or background of lead is. So first, the original layers that were used in PLEM were related to lead-based paint, and that is the primary driver of childhood blood lead levels. So that was the most, or elevated childhood blood lead levels. And so there's an about this tab. There's a how to use this tab, but I just want to focus in on, let's go to Trenton to show you the usability of it. And if we let Trenton draw in correctly, if you click on Trenton itself, a pop-up will come in and it will give you background of the breakdown of age of housing. So you can see a large portion of Trenton, for example, which is built before 1950, around 64%. And you can just see in this graph how much of Trenton, if you know the age of your housing, you can see that a huge amount is built before that 1950 protocol or 1950 date, which is based on whether or not there was not really industry standards before 1950, and then between 1950 and 1978 there were some industry standards in place, and then obviously after 1978 a law which banned lead paint came into effect. So in that terms, that this color brown means that it is a possibility or a very strong likelihood that this house is built with lead paint. 1950 to 1977, we're less certain, and it is a possibility that lead paint could have been used or it may not have. And anything built after 1978, we are more confident in that it is not a concern. And if you are more maybe concerned about a specific address, you can zoom it in and the New Jersey mod for parcels will draw in. And as you can see, you can visualize the year constructed for each parcel. So many of them, as you can see in Trenton, are that brown color, indicating that they are built before 1950 and have a stronger likelihood of having lead paint than perhaps some of the green ones, which were built more recently. And then to highlight a couple other layers that are DCA layers that have been integrated into the lead-based paint tab in PLEM is the lead-based paint inspection methods in New Jersey municipalities, which if you are local government, you may be more aware of this, that certain based on certain data, the lead-based and paint inspection methods has to be highlighted. So you can see most of the state is that visual inspection, but there are areas that are dust wipe sampling as well. For example, I believe this is Camden right here, that there's a higher concern for, and the dust wipe sampling occurs. And then additionally, as another layer for informational purposes, DCA, through pulling down some New Jersey census data, or the U.S. Bureau of Census data, we're able to get the number of 1 and 2 family homes occupied by renters, and that they were also built prior to 1980, which again is more likely to have lead-based paint. So you can see perhaps areas that you might want to prioritize with this darker red color, such as right here. You can see that there's 219 homes built before 1980, whereas over here, there's 0. And I should clarify, these are homes that are renter occupied. There may still be more homes that are built prior to 1980 that are just not renter occupied. So that's relevant to the lead-based paint, which is, I believe, is a primary topic, or the primary topic of this call. But I also want to just highlight our service line inventory tab that has been a recent addition to PLEM as of, I believe, October of 2024. This is really special to me, I think, because it gets at some of them lead-based paint or lead-based lead service line materials that are being submitted. Those inventories are being submitted by New Jersey Community Water Systems. So you just have to read this background information and hit OK before accessing it. But this is not address level data. I should first mention, we are still working through getting the address level data ready and available in a consistent format for the end users, and hope to integrate that soon. But we do have the water system totals for now. And for example, I work at 401 East State Street, which is the main building in Trenton for New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. And if you use our water system lookup tool and search that address, you will get a result that says this purveyor area, this address is serviced by Trenton Waterworks. But if you want to see specific information regarding the address, and if it's publicly available, which in the case of Trenton Waterworks it is, we can link you to their external community water system platform, and you can check to see if a certain address actually has lead service lines or not. So for example, I'm just going to eyeball it and try to get to 401 East State Street, which that actually is 401 East State Street. However, I do not see any points for it. So I'm just going to click on this one. And you can see this is 432 East State Street, and it breaks down, or at least for Trenton Waterworks, the type of materials for the service lines at that address. And I just want to show one more, that if there is no water system in that serves a particular address, that will still come up over here. So 28 Main Trail in Medford, New Jersey does not have any water system, which likely means they're on a private well. So we point users to external resources to try to understand that information better, in particular, the private well data. And then one quick overview is just turning data into action. So this is just what you've gone through the lead-based paint tab and the service line inventory tab. What can you do? So how do I know if I'm exposed to lead? And it walks through, and what is New Jersey doing to address the lead exposure? And it goes through each of the agencies involved with lead efforts, and what can you do? What can you do at the community level? And just so that way it gives some information and use cases for individuals. And I do want to highlight, I apologize, I forgot to go over this originally, but I want to zoom into those parcels, and thanks to the great data that Abby was showing before and that Gavin's team is working through, once that data is incorporated, hopefully in the cases where there's a lead-based paint inspection that occurs and that a lead safe certificate is issued, we would add a layer to distinguish that from just these three colors, the green, yellow, and brown. We would possibly add cross-hatching or something to indicate that yes, lead is likely present based on the year of construction. However, someone has gone out there, there is a lead safe certificate that has been issued, so that way the public has it assuages some of their concerns. But that is a quick 50,000 foot look of New Jersey's potential lead exposure mapping tool, or PLEM. And again, I just want to thank DCA for allowing us to present and talk about the tool today. And I look forward to integrating any of the new data that they have shared today. And that was it for my presentation. So thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate you taking the time today. And, this really speaks to the value of cross-agency collaboration when using data for action. So really excited to see how this tool could be of further use. So at this point, it's the moment you've all been waiting for. We're going to start opening it up to your questions. So either feel free to put your questions in the chat, or if you have your hand raised, we'll call on you. But this is a time to ask anything that you might be interested in having answered by us. So Abigail, I'm going to ask you to help facilitate again. If you could just start calling on folks or reading their questions in the chat, we'd be glad to start answering some questions.
Sure. We've had a few people who've had their hands raised from the very beginning, so I think we can start there. The first person who has had their hand up doesn't have a name, but has the ending four digits of their phone number of 3978. I'm just going to mute you now, so feel free to ask your question. I think they might have put their hand down, so I'll go ahead to the next person, with the name the Health Department. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, yes, my name's Stefania Totoli. I work in Kearney and Weehawken and also West New York. So thank you for the information because it has been a little confusing. I have a couple questions. First is, what is the contact to share for the software vendor that we are using so that they can reach out to you regarding the bulk data, the partnership and integration? So if I can get a contact to share with them, that'd be great.
Sure. So that's being handled by my team. So we were going to share a slide with all of our facilitators at the end. I would just advise you for anything involving the software vendors, you can just give them my email. It's gavin.rozzi@dca.nj.gov. I'll put that in the chat again. And we are happy to, obviously we are trying to reach as many software developers as we can. But obviously every municipality is different with their own system. So I would definitely suggest you have an initial conversation with your software vendor, tell them about what we're looking to do and your need for reporting. And my office would be happy to have a follow-up discussion, with you and your vendor to see if there's a path forward.
Thank you, Gavin. All right, great. Second is the auto-populating tool that you guys just implemented today. If it doesn't work with the syncing with the software database, I work in multiple municipalities. So how would that work for someone like me if I type in my name? I have separate emails. However, obviously my name does not change.
Right. So that's an interesting kind of fringe case. The majority of the folks that we've been working with, obviously, with shared services, it's entirely possible that folks are operating in multiple municipalities. So right now, Abigail, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding right now is the pre-population, it matches on both your email address and first name. So, you know, we can certainly work through this with you and see if there's some further adjustments that we can make to that. But if you have multiple different email addresses, this may not entirely solve your issue. So please give it a try. And if it ends up not being quite the user experience that you hoped for, we're happy to review your feedback and see what we can do to improve things further on our side.
Great, great. Yeah, I just wanted to put that on your radar because each municipality gives me an email. So I do have separate emails for my municipalities, but however, my name does not change. So obviously that would be some issues there.
Sure.
Second thing, third thing is they mentioned portable. Oh, actually, so the portal. Do you have a printable form of it or some type of template? Because I want to make sure that we don't miss out on the information needed while we're doing these inspections, and then we go to the portal and then we don't have that information to input. So is there some type of form or template of the portal information, the requested information?
Sure, that's a great question. And I can say right now, we don't have a specific separate template, but what you can do, if you go on to the portal webpage, there is a bar across the top that allows you to jump between the various sections of it. From there, you could take a screenshot or print it out. We'll certainly take that into account, for future documentation. Maybe we will be able to put something together like that. But you are able to go and view everything that is on the portal and grab any of the questions. So that might be something that could help you in the interim.
And also, Gavin, one thing that I could consider doing is I'm drafting the changes to 528A. I would obviously put like a including but not limited to, but I could have a list of what the portal currently requires for information and say, and any other information as may be required under the portal. That way, if they have the rule with them as they do their inspections, that page will have the baseline of information they need.
Perfect. That's a great idea, Marie. Appreciate it.
Also, just wanted to jump in on this. If you follow the portal link online, in the top right corner, there is a print option. So you'll just be able to print a full copy of the whole form as it stands right now.
Great. Thank you for that. All
Okay,
right, next
great.
question.
The last one was you guys mentioned, someone mentioned while they were presenting a link to the brochure and information, and they were going to put it in the chat, but it didn't pop up. Unless, I don't know, for some reason my chat on my end is not really working. So we're just looking for the link to the brochure and information that you had mentioned earlier in the presentation.
Sure. I believe Marie, I think you had the link for that. If you
I
could
dropped
share
it
it.
in just now.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
So I have to be honest, a few of us do not see it. I don't know why we got kicked out of the chat.
I'm
Great.
sorry for that. What we'll do, so
If you
for
could
a
put it
lot
like
of
on a
these
slide or
questions,
something.
yeah, so what we're going to do is following this presentation, we are going to send an email out with links to a lot of these resources. So we'll certainly include it there. I'm sorry, if you're having, maybe an IT issue on your side, if you're not able to access the chat, we're not really able to modify the slides right here and now. So I apologize for that.
Thank you.
No problem.
Alrighty, moving on, we have Neptune code enforcement. So you should be able to unmute your mic. If you are speaking, we can't hear you. I'll give it another second. Okay, I'll move on to the next person now. So next we have Pam Learn.
Pam, go ahead with your question.
All right, I'll just keep moving down the list. Next, there is John Medina.
Hi, good morning. So I have a few questions. Number one, any chance you can go back to slide number 7 because I'm a little bit confused.
Sure.
So my question is, if we do an inspection and we notice nothing, we issue a lead safe certification, it's good for 3 years. But then it says upon every tenant turnover, unless there's a valid lead safe certification. So which is it?
Marie, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry about that. You would think that 5 years on Teams would mean I would stop doing that sometimes, but that's not been the case yet. That is a bit of confusing language. That's kind of just a carryover from when the certification and the tenant turnover cycle didn't match up. So at this point, it really is always going to be a 3-year inspection unless something were to happen that would have invalidated the lead safe certification. Say there's a tenant turnover and there was a child in the building that was found with an elevated blood lead level. That could invalidate the lead safe certification if lead is found in the home. But in general, it's going to be a 3-year cycle all of the time now.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up.
Yep.
My second question is, and I'm not really understanding, what was the thought process behind not making this the responsibility of the health department exclusively? In my town, I'm the construction official. Health didn't want to handle it, so I kind of got thrown into the construction department. And I got one of my guys certified, but this is a health matter. It's not a construction matter. Why isn't health exclusively responsible for the enforcement of this law?
That is unfortunately not a question I can answer for you because I don't know. I think that the reason it was done through the legislation that way was because they wanted to cast as wide a net as possible to be able to have a housing agency go in as long as anybody could become qualified. I think they did it to try to ensure that towns had multiple resources for it. I think that in some cases it has worked very well. In some cases, it's been a little bit frustrating or hard for towns to get short up for staffing, but that was really the
Yeah, I
the
mean,
impetus of it.
it just doesn't really make sense to me, and again, maybe the law needs to be, revisited so that, if the town does have a health department, that should be the department that's handling this. I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me. And then, my last question, and I think it's been answered, is you're gonna make a copy of this PowerPoint available?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Okay, next, and I'm sorry for my pronunciation, we have Rajia Baskerville.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I have a specific question and just wanting to know in this scenario where it's a home with 2 owners that's both on a deed and they both live in separate units. Does this law not apply to them because they're both technically homeowners? Or is one of the units just still considered a rental unit?
So if they're both homeowners and both of them are on the deed and they live in each of the units individually, it would be exempt because there's no rental happening there. It really only kicks in if there's a rented unit. So if one of
Okay.
them were to move out and rent out their side, that unit would then be subject to inspection. But with both of them living in there, it's all good.
Okay, thank you.
And yep, one thing before we move on, Pam, I know you had issues unmuting your mic. I found your question in the chat. So I can read that out. It says, how do we get our town from a swipe test to visual? So the biggest thing there is going to be the lead data that comes in through the Department of Health. we really rely on Department of Health's data to do the dust wipe versus visual assessment. The threshold is set at the number of children that have elevated blood lead levels. Currently, I think we are looking to update our visual and dust wipe assessment to the more recent health data that's been published, but that is underway. We do that through a like
And I
memorandum
have
of
a
understanding to get that
follow-up
information.
question. I think
Oh,
I
I'm so
heard,
sorry.
I apologize. I think I heard someone ask the question, but I just want to ensure that you are gonna share the portal link at the end. You're gonna send in an email, correct?
I believe that is the case. And I know it's been shared in the chat a couple of times as well.
Yeah, that's correct, Marie. We've shared it in the chat a few times and we will share it again, but I will
Okay.
put it in the chat again so everybody can see it once more. That is the link directly to access the portal.
Thank you so much.
Okay, moving on to Derek Webb. Feel free to unmute yourself. Okay, I'll move on to Kyle
Hello?
Gustav. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't like Teams. It's not the the best, platform for communication, even though I know the state loves to use it. God bless you. For those who don't know, my name is Derek Webb. I'm the health officer for the Township of Mount Olive. I also sit on the boards of the New Jersey Environmental Health Association, but also the New Jersey Association for County and City Health Officials. I believe I got that right. I've worked with Marie. Hey, Marie. I worked with Marie pretty extensively in the past in regards to all this stuff. I'm glad to see that things are taking form. A little frustrated, like everybody else. We're building the plane as we're flying it, which makes things a little difficult. But I just have some key points. And I haven't checked, and maybe it is somewhere. I hope that there's a landing page for everything associated with this law in one place. I don't want to have to go to DEP for something. I don't want to have to go to DCA for another thing and DOH for another. So if there isn't one landing place for all the pertaining information, please work on doing that. I'm glad that we have this system where we can enter the inspections. That's good. But it kind of leads me to the grant that was rolled out to facilitate this. The grant was it had some acceptable expenses. However, things weren't 100% like spelled out. And I know in my experience, the only thing that I could use the grant for was actual inspection time, which didn't help me when I had to go ahead and create my own forms that I asked for the state to go ahead and create, and they didn't. Fine. I created it myself. I took the time to do that. I didn't have a tracking system with DCA, so then I had to go ahead and do that. Then I had to cross-reference the number of projected or eligible properties for inspection that were based off of a census from Lord knows when, and a lot of those are owner occupied, so there was time spent on that. So one of the things that I would ask is a broader list of acceptable expenses when it comes to the lead grant. Even though I did all that work, a lot of my residents are opting to go ahead and go third party on their own, which is fine. But again, I put in a lot of work before things were made available. It would be nice to go ahead and use the grant funding for some of that stuff. Let's see. Oh, going back to inputting the inspection results into the portal. When we're looking at homeowners that contract with a third party on their own, and they give us the inspection results and we do everything on our end, who's responsible for inputting that information onto the DCA portal? Is it the actual inspecting agency, or is it going to be the local authority on a municipal level to make sure that it's inputted, because I could see duplicates happening, where they might do it on their end and we might do it on our end, and it might skew a little of the data. So that would be helpful.
Sure, I can speak to the reporting obligation. I mean, look, from our perspective at DCA, the legislature passes laws, we implement and operationalize. And based on the text of the law that I had shared, the reporting obligation under this statute does fall upon the municipality. So ultimately, the municipality is responsible for the reporting, but we do allow the portal to be used by the lead contractors as well. I understand your concerns about data quality. I can tell you from my perspective, we take data quality very seriously. And in terms of skewing that information, periodically, my office does a review of the submissions. So I think, what I would say, in terms of those data quality concerns, we would rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And to the extent that there's duplicates or skewing, we have certain technical means on our end to deal with that on our side. But we definitely appreciate your feedback, and we'll keep that in mind.
Thanks. Was it before you move on? I would like to hear something about grant expenses. I'm not letting that up because I'm not too happy about that.
I was about to chime in a little bit with LGAP. I mean, it's not going to be the most helpful answer, but I will say we've been receiving a lot of questions on it. I know when the first round went out, it led to a lot of questions. Now, this money was not something that I was directly involved with the program to figure out how it would work, but we have been having conversations regarding, what a second round of that funding would look like, what opportunities were really missed that need to be better addressed. So it is something that the wheels are turning on in our policy office.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so moving on to Kyle.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for all the information that you provided today. I appreciate it. Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry. So I just want to start off. So I'm from the city of Rahway, and we have a very extensive certificate of occupancy program already in place for the last 10 years. Every tenant is required to obtain a C of O before they can move in. So what has been happening is we wouldn't let anybody even move in if there was any peeling paint, if there was a window screen missing, cracked window, anything like that. Very extensive. So a lot of our landlords, before they even call for a change of tenant occupancy or anything like that, they normally repaint the entire unit. They go over everything. About 90%, I should say, really takes care of all those issues. So we've actually we have a service agreement with Lou Environmental, and they've taken over most of the reporting the data and all that stuff. My question is, we haven't changed our ordinance yet because we were kind of seeing how it's playing out the first couple months. So my question is, we're still doing some of the inspections when they apply for a certificate of occupancy, and we've been mailing in that the $20 fee since, I believe, right when it started, about 2019. So until we change the ordinance, would the state still accept our certificates being mailed in and the inspections being done from us, or should it only be through our third party company?
I would think it would be fine either way. I mean, really, with the intent of this act, so long as an inspection is done either by the town or by a lead evaluation contractor, that's pretty open-ended. That's up to the town's discretion. So I don't see it being an issue either way.
Okay.
And I would think the same on the reporting end, if I'm not mistaken, right, Gavin? So long as a report comes in.
Yeah, exactly. I think you've got it right, Marie. I think as long as look, we've got obviously areas of question and concern, and we want everybody to be on a path towards compliance. So long as the inspections are getting done, so long as we're getting the data and we're receiving that lead hazard fee, I don't see there being any issues there from my side.
Okay, and I just want to clarify. I believe that the state wants the fee sent quarterly. Is that still what they're asking for?
That is still what is in the regulation.
Okay.
If anything changes, it would be in the rulemaking amendment, so it would be
Okay.
clear and it would go under the public comment, so you'd have opportunity to see that. I do think that one thing, I see a couple questions in the chat about standard reporting or ensuring that the levels are correct. I think that's one place where the reporting tool becomes a really great resource because it almost creates an internal line by line. We do this with UCC reporting where we collect a surcharge fee.
Mhm.
We also collect permit data, so we can see based on the permits that a town has issued, did they collect enough money? Did they collect too much money? So this is similar here. If you submit that you've done, 15 inspections in that quarter, then the price that you said, the check that you send in would reflect that. So there is kind of an intrinsic relationship, but I do think with changes, if we need to do a form, it might not hurt, or even just kind of a printed verification that you've submitted your information on the portal so you're not doing the same thing multiple times. I'd like to prevent you guys from having to do the same thing over and over as much as I
Yeah.
can.
All right, awesome. Yeah,
I
because
can
right
chime
now,
in here briefly. So with respect to tracking of the $20 fee, this is something that is on our roadmap for future developments with the portal. Obviously, right now our focus has been, as some of the other commenters have said, we're kind of building the plane as we're flying it, so to speak, and we've been focused on getting the reporting end solidified. But to Marie's point, it's really just a matter of multiplying each inspection by that $20 fee. And we think, in future iterations of the portal, we might be able to add additional functionality to support that. So it's a great point.
okay, thanks so much. And I just have one more question. Is there any chance that they will start a grant back up again after they made these rule changes and things like that? Because I know in the beginning when they were talking about the grant when it first came out, that it couldn't be used for a third party company and things like that. So a lot of people couldn't really take advantage of it because a lot of towns were forced to use a third party company, but you couldn't with the grant money. So do you think that that will be updated at some point? Because I feel like a lot of the surrounding towns that I've talked to, a lot of us kind of missed out on it because we were told that we couldn't use it for that. And now we're kind of, well, a few of us are stuck with that.
That is definitely something we're considering as we look towards the future usefulness of LGAP and what we can do with the funding to make it actually as useful as possible to municipalities.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you all so much. I appreciate all your comments and all your answers. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, next we have Jody. I'll keep moving. Next on the list, I have the Bergenfield Building Department.
Bergenfield Building Department, please unmute and go ahead with your question.
I'll move on. Next, we have Kara Hammond.
Yes, so we're just wondering, we do not do the inspections in our town. We only receive the certificates from the apartment owner, building owners, whenever they get the certification. Can you just explain what the $20 fee is and who is collecting that? Where is that going? Is that something that we should be doing? Is that the inspector? What that is?
So the way that should work, it really is a $20 surcharge fee. It is deposited into the Lead Hazard Control Assistance Fund. That is a fund that is maintained by the Department of Community Affairs that can be used for abatement activities. The way the law is worded, it does say the municipality shall remit the funds to the department, and that really is the most straightforward way to do it. What I would recommend if you are reliant on third parties to do the inspections, or if the owners in town are using their own, is to have the lead evaluation contractor then give that money to the municipality to be remitted. That way it stays in one place at the time of submission from you guys.
Okay, so our big thing is like, we don't even have any contact with the inspectors.
We hand out the list that the DCA sent out of approved inspectors.
And then the homeowners just pick and call whoever, and then we just get the certificate. So we have no communications with the inspectors.
Okay, in that case, I would say when they submit the certificate, they should
Okay.
also submit the $20 at that time. So that could
Okay.
hopefully be done through an ordinance change.
Yeah, so that's gonna be the follow-up question is I know that this is, so they're going around and checking all this. Obviously, that needs to get passed through an ordinance and violations of us not doing this currently, how that's going to be handled.
That is something that currently, I mean, listen, the department does have enforcement authority under this law. So if towns are not doing their due diligence to do these inspections, we do have the ability to issue violations. But really, the biggest goal that the department always has with any rule is compliance. So what we want to see is compliance. What we want to see is the inspections are starting to happen. If you pass an ordinance, the $20 surcharges start coming in. That is an important first step, right? So I would say focus on what you can do in the future to be in compliance with the law at this point, because really enforcement is meant for egregious non-compliance, purposeful and willful non-compliance.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the Bergenfield Building Department. You're still on mute on our side. We'll give it another minute if you. Oh,
No,
looks
maybe
like
if they're having technical difficulties. Oh, go
Can you hear
ahead.
me?
yes.
We got you.
Okay. The question is, we've been receiving multiple lead safe certificates from third-party companies doing the assessment, and I guess they're using the old certificate that says 2 years. How are we to treat them? Are we to ask them for a new certificate with the 3-year, or do we just put it in our system to go inspect or have them re-inspected in 3 years?
I would say, since, I mean, I don't want to make people have to reprint everything, and a lot of people, I know this happens in UCC offices a lot, where we'll update, the permit application and they still have the old one in stacks printed at their desk. So what I would say is if people are still sending in 2-year ones, even after it's updated, you could put 3 years in the top corner, but definitely put it in your system. If the inspection was done after September of 2024, put it in as a 3-year one.
Okay, great. That's what we've been doing. I just wanted to make sure.
That's perfect.
And also, about payments, I know it's quarterly, but how are they submitted? Are they submitted through that same portal that you guys spoke about earlier, or is there a different?
Currently, it is check-based exclusively, as far as I know.
Okay, all right. I think that's it. We haven't.
Thanks for everything.
All right. Moving on. Felix. Feel free to unmute your mic.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Mr. Shabazz and Mr. Mensa and also Mr. Wilson. We're from the City of Newark's Health Department. So our question was, which we believe may have been answered already, but I guess it's essentially, is anyone exempt from paying the $20 fee? And the reason I ask this is because we've done, several remediations through the program, and it addresses the 80% median income, which they're not, which they don't have to pay for anything. So essentially, I feel like we'd be, going in line to actually go back and say, hey, we did your remediation and abatement. Now we need to collect $20 from you. So, I mean, I guess that's my question, if you can understand that.
That is a good question. That's something I can definitely check on. I know that the law has a pretty strict shall, but if there are other programs under which they're exempt from payments, I think it would make sense to be able to read the law to also apply in that sense. But that's something I can ask through our policy and legal offices to see if that works. And I can add that information into our guidance document about the surcharge, just to make it clear.
Right, right. So just as of now, if they apply, no one is exempt though, as of now.
As of now, yes.
And after you ask that question, the guidance document will be available to us.
The guidance document is currently available online, and I am hoping to have it fully updated in the next month to match with the new lead-based paint law amendments. So that's on our webpage in the link that I dropped in the chat earlier. It's available in English and Spanish, and it will be updated. It is kind of a living document. I expect that whole website to be pretty overhauled in the coming weeks.
Okay, great.
That's all we had. Thank you.
Next, we have Amy Peluso.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. I had a question, but I wanted to also just start off. I'm the health officer for the city of Linden, and I also serve as an officer on the executive committee of the New Jersey Environmental Health Association. And I just wanted to say that I agree completely with all of the remarks that Derek made earlier. I also wanted to reiterate, somebody else had mentioned this, and I believe I had asked this in the chat earlier about the LGAP funding for third-party contractors, because I've had that funding since almost the beginning, and outside of I think $6,000 that I was able to spend on some postage to send out some postcards, I have been completely unable to spend that funding, and until we found out about the potential extension, I was getting ready to close that out and send the money back because I just was completely unable to spend that. I have two questions. Is there a standardized form for submitting that $20 fee on a quarterly basis back to the state? And also with that municipal portal where we are entering information, is there a function, or if there isn't, will there at some point be a function to be able to run reports from that municipal portal? Thank you.
Sure. Great question on the portal front. So there is not presently, to my knowledge, a standard form for the remission of the fees. Obviously, this is something that my team will take back to the drawing board and see if this is something that we might be able to implement in the near future. And then in terms of running reports from the portal, I think the closest thing to this right now would be utilizing our lead paint inspection law dashboard that we've shared here today. That will allow you to get a global view. Obviously, we redact out the full address on that dashboard, but you will have that information to cross-reference from the confirmation number of your submissions. But for those types of reporting needs, definitely try the dashboard. And if there's a specific reporting need that you're not able to accommodate through there, my office would certainly be happy to consider any feedback you might have there.
Okay, I think that answered that. I'll move on to the next person. We have Courtney Sartain.
Hi, everybody. I am the health officer for Randolph Township. I also have Scott Owie here with me. Our question is really related to having received guidance directly from DCA related to the EPA de minimis rule, less than 6 square feet per room of deteriorated paint. We've received in writing that lead inspection shouldn't fail. A property shouldn't be failed for that less than square feet per room, 6 square feet per room. And so the question is, if we're receiving that in writing, and that is not the understanding of other third-party contractors that are licensed by the DCA, there's a significant implication for the homeowners when they have to get an RRP contractor. So I'm just wondering if you can address this discrepancy, as it could really mean thousands of dollars for homeowners when, if it's under that de minimis amount, they should be able to correct that themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something we stumbled upon pretty early into the implementation of this rule, is that it's pretty open-ended, that, you know, a few nail holes in the wall. We don't really want a lead evaluation contractor saying, get an RRP person for that, because that really does add a lot of expense. We are working on sending out a newsletter to our lead evaluation contractors with some of these updates, because we have been seeing some confusion going around. And I think that, you know, it makes the most sense to follow RRP's de minimis exception rules when we look at this law, because it really is a lead safe maintenance law. And we want the properties to be able to be maintained in a lead safe fashion. If it's under 6 square feet and it doesn't need an RRP contractor, we do believe that the homeowner should be able to go in and remediate that themselves. They should be able to go in and handle that and get a reinspection. So that is definitely something that we are wanting to pass along to our lead evaluation contractors, and definitely something I intend to clarify in our rulemaking.
Yeah, Marie, this is Scott. I just wanted to reiterate what Courtney said, because in light of the change in the law language, where now towns can coordinate with these third-party companies, this is kind of being sent off into their universe. So I think the only potential connection outside of maybe rental inspections that are done is making sure that the licensed evaluators understand that there are scenarios where owners can repair this themselves, and that's clear to them.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, next we have Lillian Yang.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I have a question on the admin side of this inspection law. I know some people spoke about payments briefly. So I was wondering if we receive payment for a property and the state fees were submitted to the state, to a DCA, but now the property submitted documentation proving that renovations were completed and they were qualified, the property was qualified for an exemption. And we haven't done the inspection yet. And we want to process the refund to the owner. How do we inquire about the process to get those state fees back?
That is an interesting question. Could you actually shoot me an email and I can pass that along and figure out the process? Because that
Yes.
is a unique situation. I have my email. I put it in the chat somewhere, but I'll put it in again just so it's at the top for you.
Okay, perfect. That was my only question. Thank you.
Yep.
Next we have Karen Torito and Ashley Todd.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for taking our question. So we are in Mount Arlington Borough, and we have the same situation where it's up to the property owners to hire their own inspector and then submit the reports to us. So I understand that we are the ones to put it into the database, but for the ones that we have already received that $20 charge, are we expected to get people who have already submitted their certification or certificate, I should say, to now pay that $20, or is it now moving forward?
I believe, based on the way the law is written, the surcharge is meant to apply to every single inspection. So I would say that if you can, I know that communication can be difficult with the contractors if there really is no communication between them and you're really just getting the certs at the end of it. One thing that we can try to do on the department end is also send out guidance stating that, if you are a lead evaluation contractor and owners utilized you and you provided a certification to the town without $20 surcharge fee, please be advised that you need to go back through your records and submit surcharge fees to the town where applicable. So that can be one way we can work to help bridge that gap to get those funds that were due kind of shored away, and you can focus on moving forward and ensuring your ordinance is ready for future inspections. I feel like
think that would
that's
be
the logical step.
super helpful. Definitely. Thank you so much.
Next we have Raheen Holland. Moving on, we have Natalie Gagliardo. Or Raheen, if you're able to speak, you can go ahead. I see that your mic is unmuted. We can't hear you, but maybe you could just put your question in the chat. I'll keep going to Anthony Ravino. Okay, it seems like if you're having trouble unmuting, just please enter your question into the chat. It looks like those are currently all of the hands that we have right now.
Did I know that Natalie, it looks like your question is about the rehab. If the house is completely gutted, do they still need inspections? What that really needs to be based off of, because you want to make sure your bases are very much covered. For a total gut rehab, a new certificate of occupancy would need to be issued. You want to make sure there is a new certificate of occupancy and it's dated past 1978 to be free of lead in the interior, because since this is an interior inspection, a complete gut should ensure that there's no lead inside the building. Building permits, those records have to exist for the life of the building. So if somebody were to say we gutted the property, you may want to go to your construction office to make sure you have those records to show that in fact the certificate of occupancy does show a gut rehab past 1978 to ensure that exception is valid.
Thanks for that, Marie. And then I see another question in the chat from Melissa Bischoff. Do we need to go back into our files and submit certificates that have been issued in 2023 and 24 prior to the portal, or just moving forward today? And, you know, Marie, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that the text of the law as written applies to any inspections that were done pursuant to PL 2021, Chapter 182. So if those previous inspections were done pursuant to this subsection, my understanding is that they would be in scope for these reporting requirements. And, you know, the portal can be used prospectively as well.
I agree. The portal is meant to be used prospectively. I know when the law was first passed, the reporting requirements looked a little bit different. They were kind of patchy in when municipalities were supposed to report, and it really wasn't helpful for how it worked. But that's where, you know, a lot of the information that Gavin brought forth today about the new different pilot programs we have to get that batch data and that data that you may have entered, you know, in years past could be brought into the system.
Yeah, and if there is an exceptionally voluminous amount of data, I mean, obviously, right now, our main efforts for the pilot program have focused on the lead evaluation contractors just because they have the largest amount of data that they want to submit on behalf of the municipalities. I think, you know, depending on what we're able to work with from a feasibility standpoint, in theory, you know, we may be able to provide, you know, like a spreadsheet template that would allow for the generation of portal entries, like say if you had thousands of records from years past. So it's definitely something that, you know, our team is cognizant of the challenges on the municipal side. And, you know, through our pilot programs and other initiatives, you know, we're definitely willing to engage further. Abigail, do we have any other folks with their hands raised, or are we good?
That covers everybody. I think Raheen ended up sending his question in the chat as well as Anthony.
Yeah, so for Raheen's SC, it has to do with a property owner sending a DCA registration showing no violations for a period of 10 years. Those are DCA registered properties. And one thing I just want to help to assuage any concerns there is that although the properties are DCA registered and not DOH registered, the reason that we say registered for 10 years with no paint violations is because our Bureau of Housing Inspection does do lead safe maintenance inspections as part of their cyclical inspections. So the registration through DCA and the no outstanding paint violations is the reason that they're exempt, because we know it's something that they look for when BHI inspectors are in the building. And then I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Want to see, I'm looking at Anthony Ravino's question. Let's see, when a notice of violation is issued and remediation is required via interim controls, RRP certification has to do the work. Is the municipality expected to review the scope of work and interim control methods used by that contractor, since it's different from abatement, which triggers a full 517 abatement process? So the law does not require the town to be familiar or be aware of exactly what work is undertaken. The only time you would need to is if they were doing work that required a construction permit. especially since at the end of this remediation, the work that's being done to ensure that there's no lead-based paint hazards left is a dust wipe. So that would be confirmed on re-inspection anyway. So as it currently stands, no, the municipality doesn't need a copy of the exact work that an RRP contractor or the homeowner will be doing. Just know that the remediation is going to be tested with a dust wipe. So you'll be able to see, you know, kind of proof is in the pudding. The dust wipe will come back clean if remediation carried forth as it's meant to.
Okay, I believe those were all of our hand raises.
Okay, great. Well, we appreciate everybody's questions. I know we still have a few additional questions in the chat, so let's see if we can get through some of those, and then we'll wrap up. Chris Gay, your question: what department should inspections fall under within a municipality? Again, you know, I think this is kind of the joy of home rule in New Jersey. I mean, I think that really, while the law, you know, the inspection requirements apply to municipalities with a permanent local enforcement agency, we have seen a few different you know, structures in terms of where municipalities want to place this. So it's not really something that I can comment on, but we have seen health departments, building departments, community development offices, you know, depending on the particular structure of your municipal government, that will determine, you know, the best office to shoulder this responsibility. All right, so for additional questions, we are a little bit over time, so we're going to wrap up here. We have lead law reporting at dca.nj.gov email address. If you have any general questions about the reporting process or issues with the portal, please feel free to leverage that additional point of contact to get it to the team. I also want to share our information from the facilitators on the DCA side today. Anybody that wants to, you know, move forward the conversation about doing some sort of a bulk data sharing arrangement under our pilot programs, I invite you to reach out to either me or my staff from the DHCR data center team, and we're happy to facilitate those conversations. And with that, I want to thank everybody for participating today. We're going to be sending out a survey. We're going to be sending out additional resources. We also have a DCA YouTube channel where a recording of this will be made available. So we'll be sending some of those additional resources out to you in the near future. I want to thank you for all of your efforts, and together we can get the lead out in New Jersey. Thanks, everybody.